So thank you all for accommodating my talk online. Um, so I'm here to discuss today. Um, my title of my talk is Meeting Students Where They Are, Understanding Who, How, and for What Reasons Students Do and Don't Attend Office Hours. And I'm an instructor at Arizona State University. Um, so As my colleagues have already noted, we put together a survey for students to fill out based on our ideas about office hours. In our writing programs committee, we were trying to assess if our current policy for office hours was appropriate. And while we had asked instructors and we had thought about our new office spaces. We had just moved buildings. One big element that we didn't consider is the students. So we sent out a 17 question survey to our writing programs teachers to deliver to their students, hopefully in class. And we returned about 500 responses. And one of the things that I'd like to talk about really are the complex lives of our students as they've expressed in the surveys, and both as have been expressed in the literature of students' basic needs, with kind of narratives of office hours in decline. So in the beginning of, I think, 2017. Perhaps maybe you saw it, but ASU professors, a lot of administrators and deans put together a kind of funny video about selling office hours to students. And the theme of it was, fear of meeting one-on-one with my professor. And it was trying to really take students' ideas of a professor in office hours and really calm them down, but in a funny way. Now, as a writing teacher, I take issue with that because I'm approachable to my students, and my students are meant to come and see me. And quite often, at least on their end, they're not expressing fear to meet with me. They're often, anecdotally, from my own perspective, expressing the fact that, like, we don't have the same schedule, or my office is too far to meet with them on the day that they only have 15 minutes from class. And so the survey data really helped us understand a little bit where students are. So again, what we did is in spring 2018, we returned about 500 student surveys. These were from students that were in face-to-face classes, hybrid, and online students. So we get a really diverse group of students. The majority of respondents were from business and engineering, but we did have a high number of respondents from the liberal arts and science. And our questions focus on students' lives, office hours accessibility, which was a big thing because we did just move buildings. So our buildings had moved across campus, and then actually the way to get into our building had become increasingly a little bit more complicated. And then the way to find our writing instructors who were positioned in sort of open office cubicles with locked doors on the second floor, again, a little bit more difficult. We asked about the frequency of their office hour visits, why students would attend office hours, and then things that would get in the way of students attending office hours. And so some of the literature that also guided my thinking in creating this survey was the growing number of people talking about students' basic needs. And so this guide to accessing basic needs and security in higher education goes through talking about some of the issues facing students that might not have reached the level of, say for instance, the professors talking about fear of meeting their students one-on-one in office hours. So I'm just going to read from this quote. There's a growing evidence that food and housing insecurity compromise the well-being of thousands of undergraduates across the country, reducing the odds that they will complete degrees. A recent study of more than 43,000 students found that widespread basic needs insecurity at both the 2 and the 4-year colleges. At community colleges, 42% were food insecure, 46% were housing insecure, and 12% were homeless. Of university students surveyed, so that's us at ASU, 36% were food insecure, 36% were housing insecure, and 9% were homeless. 2 studies conducted at other institutions have yielded similar results. So the bottom line here being is that now, regardless of whether we can get this from office hours, our students have complicated lives, and this is drawn out in the survey. And those complicated lives sometimes dictate how and when and how much students can participate and attend office hours. And the other thing about ASU is we're committed to access. So this is our university charter. We're a comprehensive public research university measured by not whom it excludes, but whom it includes and how they succeed, advancing research and discovery of public value, and assuming fundamental responsibility for the economic, social, cultural, and overall health of communities it serves. So part of that commitment to access means that we account for diverse needs and students with complex lives. So we are not an elite institution that says only a certain type of student can go here, and students must be 100% committed to only their studies. In fact, many of our students hold multiple jobs, as we will see in just a minute. And so our office hours, right, that we should be able to understand that when we think about how students attend office hours. So our survey data, question number 5, asked if students have any other obligations outside of school. So 12% of the respondents say they support family or care for dependents. 6.6% say they work full-time. 35% say that they work part-time. 21% say that they have volunteer commitments. And then 23% said other. So some of these involve sorority or fraternities. Some students talked about church commitments here. And so that varied there. But the thing that we get here is that the overwhelming majority of our students do something more than just go to school. And 18%-ish, 17%, work full-time or support family or care for dependents. And that's something to think about when we think about office hours. So we asked students how many hours. So the students that work on or off campus, what number per week. So 50% say they didn't work at all, which kind of conflicts a little bit with question 5. But I'm going to choose to trust students, and obviously to really kind of think about this survey larger, we need more respondents. But I think the survey does serve as a guide to student thinking. So 36% of students work 10 plus hours a week. And we had to sit with that and really think about that. 5% say they work 30 plus hours a week. So those students are going to have a hard time coming to our office hours. Living on or off campus. I don't know about your campuses, but Arizona State University is actually not an easy campus to get on and then to go places on. So there's parking. If you've bought a parking pass, which can be really, really, really expensive, for the entire year, then you can park in your garage. But oftentimes that takes a little while because they've oversold a lot of the parking garages at my university. On top of that, if you didn't park in a garage, the parking cost, an all-day parking pass in a garage is $15 a day. You can also get it for, I want to say, $3 or $4 an hour. That would be the cost of a student attending office hours. So if they felt that a meeting was really important with you and they only needed to meet with you for, say, an hour, say it takes them an hour, a $4 office hour meeting. And that's not to say, like, what if it's the wrong time and they forgot to bring their food, and then they have to maybe spend money to go get food at the MU. So question number 8, if you live off campus, how do you get to class? So asking the question about transportation was also really important, like how many of our students are commuting to school via car, and that gives us a little insight into who has to access that garage to park, and what kind of struggles do they have just to even get to campus, not to mention office hours. So, and then how often do you normally visit one of your professors during office hours? So 7%, almost 8% say once a week. 13% say once every 2 weeks. Once a month is about 26%. Once a semester is 28%. And then almost 22% say never. And so we've got a little bit of a bell curve. And then I think these are the more illuminating questions. So what motivates you to visit a professor? Overwhelmingly, it's questions about an assignment. So some students say they're required. Other students say getting extra credit. The smaller numbers are, advising, interest about the subject, and getting advice in a personal manner. So our students are really, like, the biggest motivation for them is success in the class by assignments. If you're required by the professor, obviously that's something, and then extra credit work. So there is a really big buy-in when, say for instance, we don't have enough information in our courses and our students are really confused. So there's a buy-in to go into office hours that way. If it's required, right? Is this even a good practice to require students who work 30 plus hours a week, who have a hard time to get on campus, to require them for you to come to office hours? Or to give that extra credit, are we giving unfair advantages to other students who can easily get on campus because they live on campus? And so we had a couple of ranked choice questions, and we asked students, if you had trouble understanding the course assignment or do not understand the subject matter in the course, what would you do? So to kind of think about, like, how students move through making a decision about office hours, making an appointment with professors was the second choice. First choice 1% of the time. The second choice 10% by 10% of students. The third choice by 23% with students, and it's the fourth choice by 47% of students. So what this tells us is making and honestly dropping in during office hours. So 41%, that's kind of the other port. You can either make an appointment or drop in, obviously. But they're the third and the fourth biggest choice, right? And I think that tells us something, is that students are trying to figure out their issues before they have to come meet with their professors. But that doesn't mean that they don't want to meet with you. My argument here today is that office hours are tricky for some students because of their complex lives, and that when we conceive of a student in our head who doesn't attend office hours, we need to ask ourselves, are they not attending office hours because of me? Are they not attending office hours because of their lives? And most likely it's because their lives. And the other thing, in order of importance, what impact does each of the following have on the likelihood of your consulting with a professor during office hours? 40% say location, 46% say scheduling and office hours. Both of those things point to your office hours need to be in the student's right place at the right time, right? Some of those things are uncontrollable to us as professors and instructors. The other thing I want to know is option of meeting by phone or video. What we found in the survey is that students aren't exactly hip on the idea of video conferencing as an alternative, right? The students who have complex lives, who can't make it into your physical office hours, we often think that a video conference could just solve it. Anecdotally, I know that my video conferencing for my hybrid and online students aren't very popular, but it looks like the survey data is fleshing that out too. So I want to get to where we're making some conclusions and thinking about how to best meet students where they are. I think the first step is to really understand why students don't come to office hours. And I think that we've provided a lot of information to help rethink and retool that narrative in our survey data and then in the literature on students' basic needs and thinking of students having complex lives. Also thinking about rethinking space and time for office hours. For me, the most populous time during office hours for me is that I teach 4 classes in a row, but in the middle of, after 2 classes, I have a 30-minute break. I see more students in the classroom space that I'm teaching in those 30-minute breaks than I do in the 3.5 hours of office hours that I sit in on a different day on campus. So I think administrators and professors need to be flexible about how instructors conceive office hours. Some instructors get a lot of students during office hours, some don't. Some instructors really, I think that that's one of the takeaways, is that administrators need to listen to how instructors can best meet their students. And they are the primary people touching students' lives and understanding students. So if they come up with this, hey, we don't want to have a set 4-hour office hours because we want to be able to be more flexible with our students and maybe sit with them 4 hours a week, then that's better than having, somebody who's required to sit in one space for 4 hours. So rethinking the policies, I think, is helpful. And then what's the role of tech in online office hours? This could be something that you actually have to teach students to do a little bit more and get them in the practice of using, holding like conference calls, like fake conference calls during class using the technology so that they already have it installed on their stuff and they're really comfortable using it. And then finally, contingency issues are a problem. Adjunct faculty who teach just one class, non-tenure track faculty who have inadequate office space and don't feel comfortable inviting students into whatever space the university provides is actually a big issue. And then quite often this can turn into not meeting students at space or not even having the time to meet with students in that space, or that space not being open. And so I think that's another issue. Another issue with contingency is that when we think about students' office hours, we really do have to think about how to best meet students where they are. but to also take into account where the instructors are. So we can't be on 24/7 because we're not compensated to do our job 24/7. We're not required to text students all night about their project. But we should have a healthy medium as to how to meet students. And so that's an issue that we need to address. And so, yeah, thank you for accommodating this presentation, and I hope that you take away a little bit more about thinking of students and where they're at in office hours.